The terrifying truth. Aliens discover humanity was built for war. Part 1. The massive alien ship hovered silently behind Jupiter's largest moon. On its command deck, senior observer Xaldrex stared at the holographic display showing the blue-green planet called Earth. His six-fingered hand moved through the projection, zooming in on a space station orbiting the world. Fascinating creatures, Xaldrex said to his science officer. They've only discovered space travel a century ago, yet they've already established colonies on their neighboring planet. Their progress is concerning, replied Science Officer Zivrik, her scales shifting to a worried blue color. The Coalition Council wants daily reports on their military capabilities. Xaldrex nodded. The Galactic Coalition had discovered Earth 6 months ago during a routine expansion survey. Their policy was clear: observe new civilizations secretly before making contact. Humanity was the 28th intelligent species they had found, but something about these beings troubled the Coalition leadership. Meanwhile, on the International Space Vessel Horizon, Captain John Miller floated through the command module. The ship was 3 days into its journey to Mars, carrying supplies for the growing colony. Status report, Sam. John asked his navigator. Sam Wells looked up from his console. On course, Captain. We should reach Mars orbit in 4 days if we maintain current speed. Lisa Summers, the ship's xenobiologist, pushed herself into the module. Her eyes were wide with excitement. Captain, you need to see this, she said, connecting her tablet to the main screen. I've been monitoring deep space signals as a side project, and I picked up something strange near Jupiter. The screen showed energy readings that pulsed in regular patterns. That's not natural, John said, frowning, and definitely not one of our probes. No, sir, Lisa agreed. Whatever's creating these readings is using technology far beyond ours. Back on Earth, in the Houston Space Command Center, General Alan Parker reviewed the same data Lisa had discovered. His face remained calm, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped his coffee mug. How long has this been out there? He asked the young analyst beside him. We think at least 6 months, sir, replied the analyst. It's been hiding in Jupiter's shadow, but Dr. Summers spotted the energy fluctuations. The general nodded. Keep this quiet. I need to call the president. On the Coalition ship, alarms suddenly blared. Xaldrex rushed to the monitoring station, where a junior officer pointed at a small craft on the display. A human shuttle from their Mars colony has suffered a propulsion failure, the officer explained. It's drifting into an asteroid field. They have 3 humans aboard. Are they in danger? Xaldrex asked. Yes. Their vessel cannot maneuver, and our calculations show a 94% chance of fatal impact within the hour. Xaldrex hesitated only briefly. Coalition protocol is clear. We cannot allow sentient beings to die if we can help. Prepare a rescue team. But, sir, objected his second-in-command, this will reveal our presence to the humans. I'm aware, Xaldrex said. Sometimes first contact happens earlier than planned. The human shuttle Pioneer spun slowly as its pilot, Greg Wilson, tried desperately to restart the engines. Warning lights flashed across his control panel. No response from the backup systems, reported his engineer, Diane Foster. We're still broadcasting the distress signal, but we're too far for immediate help from Mars or Earth. The third crew member, Ben Harris, pointed through the viewport. What's that light? A brilliant blue beam suddenly enveloped their shuttle. The spinning stopped. We're being pulled by something, Greg said, checking his instruments, but there's nothing out there that cold. His words died as the massive Coalition ship decloaked before them, glowing with lights along its silver hull. It was 5 times larger than the largest vessel humans had ever built. My God, whispered Diane, her face pale in the blue light. Back on Earth, every major observatory and space monitoring station suddenly detected the alien ship. News spread quickly despite government attempts to control the information. In the White House Situation Room, the president stood watching screens showing the alien vessel. "The craft is pulling our damaged shuttle into what appears to be a docking bay," reported the NASA director. "They're rescuing our people." The president straightened his tie. "Prepare a global broadcast. Humanity is about to meet its neighbors." On the coalition ship, Zaldrex prepared to greet the humans personally. First contact had begun. The terrifying truth. Aliens discover humanity was built for war. Part 2. 6 months had passed since first contact. The gleaming orbital diplomatic station hung in space between Earth and the Moon. Built by humans but enhanced with coalition technology, it served as the meeting point between humanity and the 27 alien species of the Galactic Coalition. Frank Russell adjusted his tie as he waited in the station's main conference room. As Earth's chosen ambassador, the weight of humanity's future rested on his shoulders. The door slid open, and 3 alien representatives entered. Ambassador Russell greeted Zaldrex, now the official coalition liaison to Earth. "Thank you for meeting with us today. The pleasure is mine," Frank replied, shaking Zaldrex's 6-fingered hand carefully. Science Officer Zivrik stood nearby, her scales shifting between green and blue as she studied Frank through specialized lenses. The third alien, Security Commander Krall, remained by the door, his 4 eyes constantly scanning the room. "We have reviewed your proposal for expanded cultural exchange," Zaldrex said. "The Council approves, with some modifications." Frank nodded. "We're eager to learn from each other." "Indeed," Zivrik said, her voice soft but curious. "Your species continues to fascinate us. Your medical data alone raises many questions." In the station's medical bay, Patricia Newman watched as a coalition doctor examined a human engineer who had injured his hand in an accident. Patricia, a former military consultant, now working with the diplomatic team, noticed how the alien doctor seemed surprised by something. "Is everything all right?" she asked. The doctor blinked his large eyes. "Yes, I am simply impressed. This human has a bone fracture, yet he barely shows signs of pain. And his healing rate is remarkably fast." Patricia shrugged. "That's normal for us." "Normal," the doctor repeated quietly, making notes on his device. Later that day, in the Earth Embassy section of the station, Patricia shared her observations with Frank. "They seem nervous around us, Frank. Have you noticed?" Frank poured coffee for both of them. "The coalition species evolved in much more stable environments than Earth. They find our adaptability unusual." "It's more than that," Patricia insisted. "Yesterday, I saw Commander Krall watching training exercises in the gym. When Chief Rogers lifted weights, Krall's skin turned pale." "What are you suggesting?" Frank asked. "I think they're afraid of us," Patricia said, "and I don't understand why." In the coalition section of the station, Zivrik reviewed human medical scans in her private laboratory. Her assistant entered with new data tablets. "The comparison results you requested, Science Officer," the assistant said. Zivrik studied the information and her scales darkened with concern. "This cannot be correct. Run the tests again." "I have run them 3 times, her assistant replied. "Humans have bone density twice that of Rexians, who evolved on a high-gravity world. Their muscle efficiency exceeds even the Cordell hunters, and their nervous system reaction time. Send this data to the High Council immediately," Zivrik ordered. "Mark it urgent." On Earth, at NASA headquarters, Lisa Summers analyzed coalition technology data shared during the exchanges. Her colleague, Jack Peters, looked over her shoulder. "Something wrong, Lisa?" he asked. "They're sharing medical and agricultural technology freely," Lisa said. "But notice how little they've shared about their defense systems or propulsion technology." Jack frowned. "You think they don't trust us? Would you trust a species you just met?" Lisa replied. Back on the station, Frank led Zaldrex on a tour of the new human cultural exhibit. They stopped before a display showing human sports and physical competitions. "Your people seem to enjoy testing their physical limits," Zaldrex observed. "It's part of who we are," Frank explained. "Pushing boundaries, seeing what's possible." Zaldrex gestured to a video of marathon runners. This activity, running until exhaustion, you call this entertainment? Frank laughed. For some, others run to stay healthy. On most coalition worlds, Zaldrex said carefully, such physical endurance would only be necessary for survival or warfare. Frank's smile faded slightly. We come from a challenging world, Zaldrex. Earth shaped us to be resilient. That night, Zivrik sent her final report to the Coalition High Command. The title read, Human Physiological Assessment, Preliminary Findings. In her private quarters, she added a personal note. These humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They don't know it yet, but their bodies tell a terrifying truth. They were built for war. The terrifying truth. Aliens discovered humanity was built for war. Part 3. Science Officer Zivrik stood before a wall of screens in her research lab. Each display showed different moments from human history, ancient battles, modern sports competitions, space exploration missions, and natural disaster responses. She had spent weeks studying human historical records, and what she found deeply troubled her. Computer, compare human response to environmental threats with coalition species standards, Zivrik commanded. The computer displayed new charts. Humans demonstrate 217% higher survival rates in hostile environments compared to coalition averages. They show unusual ability to continue functioning under conditions of pain, hunger, exposure, and physical damage. Zivrik's scales darkened, and their history of warfare. Continuous conflict throughout recorded history. The computer responded. Periods of peace are statistical anomalies. In another section of the station, Jack Peters helped a group of alien engineers understand human infrastructure designs. The civilian engineer pointed to a bridge blueprint. We build redundancy into everything, Jack explained. Multiple backup systems, emergency protocols, alternative routes. Nelvar, one of the alien engineers, tilted his head. This suggests you expect systems to fail regularly. Jack shrugged. We hope for the best but plan for the worst. Fascinating, Nelvar said, sharing a concerned look with his colleagues. Later that day, Zivrik entered the private quarters of Coalition Commander Vrex, the highest-ranking military officer on the station. She placed a data pad on his desk. You requested my complete assessment, Commander, she said. Commander Vrex reviewed the information, his expression growing darker. Are you certain of these findings? I have verified all data points, Zivrik replied. Humans can survive radiation levels that would kill most coalition species. They can continue functioning with blood loss that would incapacitate others. They heal from injuries at rates that defy our medical understanding. And most concerning. Yes, Vrex prompted. They seem designed to fight, Zivrik continued. Their bodies produce chemicals during conflict that enhance their strength and dull pain. Their social structures form tight bonds that make them protect each other at cost to themselves. Their young engage in play that simulates combat. Even their recreational activities build war-useful skills. Commander Vrex stood and walked to the viewport, looking down at Earth. The Coalition Council must be informed immediately. These humans may represent the greatest threat we have ever encountered. In the Earth section of the station, Patricia Newman accessed her terminal. Her security clearance as a military consultant allowed her to monitor certain coalition communications. What she saw made her blood run cold. She immediately contacted Ambassador Frank. Frank, we have a problem, Patricia said when they met privately. I've intercepted partial transmissions between the station and the coalition homeworlds. They're conducting a threat assessment on us. Frank frowned. Are you sure? We've been transparent with them. The keywords I caught included containment options and military response scenarios. Patricia handed him her notes. They're afraid of us, and I think I know why. She showed Frank data she had gathered. Look at these medical comparisons. To them, we're practically superhuman. We can run longer, endure more pain, survive worse injuries, and adapt to conditions that would kill them. Frank's expression grew serious. Have they shared these concerns officially? No, and that's what worries me, Patricia replied. They're keeping these assessments secret while smiling at our diplomatic meetings. Meanwhile, Zivrik led a briefing for coalition scientists. Behind locked doors, she presented her conclusions. Earth is what we would classify as a death world, she explained. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, dangerous predators, natural disasters, radiation, and pathogens. No other known sentient species evolved in such hostile conditions. She displayed images of human activities, firefighters rushing into burning buildings, soldiers carrying wounded comrades, explorers in extreme environments. These aren't just brave individuals, Zivrik continued. These capabilities exist in all humans. They have evolved to survive conditions that would exterminate most species, and a species that can survive anything can conquer anything, finished Commander Vrex, who had been listening from the back of the room. The question now becomes, what do we do about the humans? The terrifying truth. Aliens discover humanity was built for war. Part 4. The Coalition flagship, Celestial Harmony, arrived in Earth orbit with little warning. Nearly 3 times larger than the diplomatic station, its presence caused immediate concern among Earth's governments. On the flagship's command deck, 7 senior representatives from different coalition species gathered around a large circular table. Commander Vrex stood at the head of the meeting. We are here to determine the appropriate response to the human situation, Vrex stated. Science Officer Zivrik will present her final assessment. Zivrik's scales showed a mix of blue and green as she activated the central display. My team has completed a comprehensive study of human physiology, psychology, and history. The results confirm our initial concerns. Images of human achievements, wars, and survival stories flashed on the screen. Humans possess reaction speeds twice that of Nevari pilots, Zivrik continued. They can survive in temperature ranges that would kill most sentient beings. Their bones break less easily than Durian miners, who evolved on a heavy gravity world. And most concerning, they can continue fighting even when severely injured. An older representative named Calder raised a hand, but they have shown no aggression toward the coalition. They've been open to diplomacy. For now, said Security Chief Morta, her voice harsh. But what happens when they spread beyond their solar system? When they have access to our technology? Their history shows constant warfare among themselves. Why would they treat us differently? In the diplomatic station nearby, Diana Rodriguez worked quickly at her terminal. As an intelligence officer for the Earth delegation, she had been monitoring coalition communications. The arrival of the flagship had triggered her alert systems. This can't be right, she muttered, reading the partial translations of messages between the flagship and coalition homeworlds. Words like containment, neutralization, and preemptive appeared repeatedly. Diana immediately contacted Ambassador Frank and Patricia. They're discussing military options against Earth, Diana explained, showing them the intercepted communications. The flagship isn't here for diplomacy. Frank's face paled. They've never mentioned any concerns officially. We need to address this directly. Before we do, Patricia said, look at this. She showed them a classified report from Earth's scientific team. Our researchers have been studying coalition biology too. Did you know they have almost no natural predators on their worlds? Most of their species evolved in stable environments with minimal threats. Frank understood immediately. They don't know how to process our adaptability because they never needed it. On the flagship, the debate continued. The humans have twice requested to join deep space exploration missions, said Calder. Should we continue to delay them? Absolutely, replied Morta. Their physical capabilities combined with their curiosity make them unpredictable. Imagine humans with access to jump drive technology. They could spread throughout the galaxy in one generation. Vrex nodded. The Council has authorized me to implement containment protocols if necessary. We cannot risk the peace of 27 worlds. Back on Earth, Military leaders from major nations gathered in an emergency session. General Alan Parker presented the intelligence findings. The coalition has classified us as a potential threat, he explained. They're discussing limiting our space exploration and restricting our access to their technology. Based on what? Asked the European defense minister. We've honored every diplomatic agreement. Based on our biology, Alan replied. And our history. They think we're built for war. Eric Dawson, a senior military strategist, spoke up. From their perspective, it makes sense. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and natural disasters. The coalition species had it easy by comparison. So what do we do? Asked the Chinese representative. We prepare contingencies, Eric replied. But more importantly, we find a diplomatic solution. If they fear what we might do, we need to show them what we actually do. In orbit, Frank requested an emergency meeting with Zaldrex. We know about the threat assessment, Frank said directly when they met. We know the coalition considers humans dangerous. Why wasn't this discussed through official channels? Zaldrex's colors shifted to a pale yellow. Some matters are sensitive. The Coalition Council feared your reaction if you knew how you were being classified. As what exactly? Frank asked. Zaldrex hesitated before answering. As the only known species evolved specifically for warfare. The terrifying truth. Aliens discover humanity was built for war. Part 5. Yellner walked quickly through the dimly lit corridors of the diplomatic station's lower levels. The young coalition scientist looked over his shoulder repeatedly, clutching a data device to his chest. He had made his decision, though it might cost him everything. At the agreed meeting point, Jack Peters waited alone. You came, Jack said, relief in his voice. Yellner handed over the data device with trembling hands. This contains the full threat assessment report on humans. The Coalition Council has already voted on containment measures. Jack's eyes widened. What kind of measures? Limiting your space travel, restricting technology transfer, placing monitoring satellites around your world. Yellner's voice dropped to a whisper. Some factions pushed for more extreme actions. Because not all of us agree with this approach, Yellner replied. I believe in understanding, not fear. Within hours, the classified report spread across Earth's governments. President Howard called an emergency broadcast to address the growing public panic as news leaked to the media. My fellow citizens, the president began, today we learned that the Galactic Coalition has classified humanity as a potential threat based on our biology and history. I want to assure you that we are pursuing all diplomatic channels to address this misunderstanding. On screens worldwide, people watched with growing concern. The report described humans in clinical, frightening terms. Humans demonstrate biological traits consistent with apex predators. Their adrenaline response increases strength by up to 300% in crisis situations. Their pack-bonding behaviors create unusually strong loyalty that overrides self-preservation. Their territorial instincts combined with tactical thinking make them natural warriors. In his Pentagon office, Eric Dawson reviewed the report with a growing sense of dread. The Coalition's assessment wasn't wrong about human capabilities, but their conclusions missed the bigger picture. He picked up his secure phone to call the president. Sir, we need to show them our full history, Eric said. Not just our wars, but why we fought them. Not just our strength, but how we use it. On the Coalition flagship, Commander Vrex faced unexpected resistance. Several representatives had called for caution after reviewing the complete human historical record. Yes, they fought wars, said Keldar, the elder representative. But look at their art, their music, their healing techniques. These are not the actions of a species built only for destruction. Their capability for violence remains, argued Morda. The Council has authorized restrictions on human space development. Their vessels must not leave their solar system. In orbit around Mars, a Coalition patrol ship approached the human colony. Its captain transmitted a message to the settlement. By order of the Coalition Council, all human space activity beyond your planet's orbit is now restricted pending security review. Please prepare for inspection of your facilities. Governor Susan Lane of Mars Colony 1 was shocked. On what authority do they restrict our movement? She demanded over the communication channel. Coalition Security Directive 147, replied the alien captain. All potentially hostile species must be contained until proper assessment is complete. Potentially hostile. Susan repeated, anger rising in her voice. We've done nothing to threaten the coalition. Back on Earth, Diana Rodriguez burst into Ambassador Frank's office with breaking news. They're implementing restrictions already, she said. They've ordered our Mars colony to stand down for inspection, and they're deploying monitoring satellites around Earth. Frank shook his head. This is moving too fast. Get me a direct line to Xaldrex. Across Earth, public reaction to the leaked report varied wildly. Some people panicked, fearing alien invasion. Others grew angry at being classified as dangerous without cause. News channels showed footage of protests outside the few coalition outposts on Earth. In New York, thousands gathered in Times Square, where the coalition had established a cultural center. They carried signs reading, "We come in peace, and judge us by our actions, not our biology." Karen Mitchell, a respected diplomat, addressed the crowd. "We must show them who we really are. Yes, we evolved to survive a harsh world. Yes, we can fight when necessary. But that's not what defines us." The crowd cheered as she continued. "Humans built hospitals before we built weapons. We write poetry about peace more than songs of war. Let them see our true nature." As she spoke, coalition ships moved into positions around Earth. On the flagship, Commander Vrex gave the order. Deploy containment grid. No human vessels are to leave orbit without authorization. Humanity had been officially quarantined. The terrifying truth. Aliens discover humanity was built for war. Part 6. A tense silence filled the meeting room on the diplomatic station. Ambassador Frank Russell sat across from Xaldrex and 3 other coalition representatives. The atmosphere had changed dramatically in the 2 days since the quarantine began. "Your containment measures violate our prior agreements," Frank said firmly. "Earth demands they be lifted immediately." Xaldrex's skin displayed patches of nervous yellow. "The Council believes these measures are temporary until proper security protocols can be established." Security protocols. Frank leaned forward. "We've shown nothing but peaceful intentions since first contact." A tall, thin alien named Drell, representing Coalition Security, spoke up. "Intentions can change. Your species' natural aggression is a survival adaptation," Frank interrupted, "not a plan for galactic domination." Outside the meeting room, 2 human security officers stood guard near a coalition diplomat. One of the humans, Officer Steve Johnson, shifted his weight and accidentally bumped the alien's shoulder. The coalition diplomat jumped back, clearly startled. "Do not touch me." "Sorry," Steve said, raising his hands. "It was an accident." The diplomat backed away further. "Keep your distance, human." Officer Carl Bennett stepped forward. He said he was sorry. "There's no need to." The diplomat pressed an emergency signal on his wrist device. Within seconds, 4 coalition security officers rushed into the hallway, weapons drawn. "Stand back from the diplomat," one shouted. "Lower your weapons," Carl replied, his hand moving instinctively toward his own sidearm. "This is a misunderstanding." The coalition officers saw his movement and raised their weapons higher. The human is reaching for a weapon. In orbit around Mars, 3 coalition battleships moved into defensive positions above the human colony. Governor Susan Lane watched from her office window, anxiety building as more alien ships appeared. "They're treating us like criminals," she said to her assistant. "Contact Earth Command again. We need guidance." Her assistant looked up from his console. "Communications are being jammed. We can't reach Earth or the other Mars settlements." Back on Earth, Karen Mitchell worked desperately to diffuse the growing tension. As one of Earth's most skilled diplomats, she had called an emergency meeting with coalition representatives who still supported peaceful relations. "You need to understand human psychology," Karen explained. "The more you restrict us, the more we resist. It's not aggression. It's a response to perceived threats." Yelnar, who had leaked the report, nodded. "Some of us understand this, but Security Chief Morta has convinced many that humans cannot be trusted with advanced technology." "Why?" Karen asked. "Because of how quickly you advance," said another alien scientist. "Your species went from primitive flight to space travel in under a century. Most Coalition species took 5 times longer." On the Coalition flagship, a radical faction had formed. Led by Commander Brill, they believe humans posed an existential threat to galactic peace. "We cannot wait for them to develop further," Brill argued to a small group of supporters. "Earth must be neutralized now." "The Council would never approve a first strike," said one officer. Brill's 4 eyes narrowed. "Then we act without approval, for the greater good." As the diplomats continued their heated discussion on the station, alarms suddenly blared. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the complex. "What's happening?" Frank demanded. A human officer burst into the room. "Sir, Coalition forces have opened fire on Mars Colony 1. Frank stared at Zaldrex in shock. "Is this your idea of diplomacy?" Zaldrex looked equally stunned. "I gave no such order. This is not authorized." On their screens, they watched as 3 Coalition ships fired precision weapons at Mars Colony's defense systems. The human security forces returned fire, their outdated weapons barely scratching the alien vessels. Earth military bases worldwide went to high alert. General Alan Parker entered the White House Situation Room, his face grim. "Mr. President, we're looking at an unauthorized attack on Mars." The main Coalition leadership appears equally surprised, but they're not stopping it. "Options?" the President asked. "Limited," Alan replied. "Our Mars defense forces are outmatched, but we have our orbital platforms, and every nation has agreed to coordinate response." Within hours, humanity demonstrated exactly what the Coalition feared most: the ability to unite instantly against an outside threat. Nations that had been enemies for generations shared military resources and strategy. Scientists worldwide worked together to adapt Coalition technology they had already studied. The President addressed a unified Earth via emergency broadcast. "We face an unprovoked attack on our people, but we will show them that humans don't just fight for war. We fight to protect our own." The terrifying truth: aliens discover humanity was built for war. Part 7. The situation had spiraled out of control in just 72 hours. Coalition ships formed a blockade around Earth while the attack on Mars continued. Emergency evacuation shuttles carried colonists to underground shelters as explosions rocked the surface facilities. In orbit, Coalition forces faced unexpected resistance. Earth's nations had quickly modified their satellite networks into makeshift defense systems using principles learned from alien technology. On the Coalition flagship, Commander Vrex confronted the rebel faction leader. "Commander Brill, you have violated direct orders," Vrex said, his voice cold with anger. "The Council never authorized an attack." Brill stood defiant. "We acted to protect the Coalition. These humans were already adapting our technology at an alarming rate. And now you have united them against us." Vrex replied. "Exactly the outcome we sought to avoid." Meanwhile, in her laboratory on the diplomatic station, Zivrik worked frantically. She had locked herself inside for 20 hours straight, reviewing all human data. Something wasn't adding up in her original conclusions. "Computer, display evolutionary timeline of Earth species again," she commanded. "Focus on environmental pressures and survival adaptations." Holographic displays filled the room with Earth's turbulent history: ice ages, meteor impacts, shifting continents, and mass extinctions. "Cross-reference with typical warrior species evolution patterns," Zivrik requested. The computer completed its analysis. Correlation only 37%. Human adaptations primarily show survival focus, not combat optimization. Zivrik's scales turned bright blue with realization. We've been wrong from the beginning. On Earth, Paul Davis, a historian working with the diplomatic team, gathered materials for emergency transmission to the Coalition Council. He selected artwork showing human compassion, recordings of music, and documentation of humanitarian efforts throughout history. They need to see all of us, Paul told Diana Rodriguez as they worked. Not just our capacity for war, but our drive to heal, to create, to connect. Diana nodded. If we can get this to the right people, maybe we can end this before it gets worse. In the White House Situation Room, military leaders presented grim options to the president. Mars colony reports 53 casualties, General Allen said. Their main defense grid is down. What about our countermeasures? Asked the president. Eric Dawson pointed to display screens showing coalition ships. Our modified satellites are causing interference with their targeting systems, but it's only buying time. However, we've discovered something interesting about their hull designs. They're built for efficiency, not durability, added a naval commander. They never needed to withstand sustained attacks in their peaceful section of the galaxy. Back on the diplomatic station, Ambassador Frank met urgently with Taldrex. Your people started this fight, Frank said, but we don't want to continue it. There's a fundamental misunderstanding here. I agree, Saldrex replied. But Commander Brill's faction has seized control of key battle groups. The Council is trying to regain authority, but it will take time. Suddenly, Zivrik burst into the room, out of breath. I have proof. We were wrong about humans. She activated her data pad, displaying her new findings. Humans didn't evolve for war. They evolved to survive. There's a critical difference. Saldrex studied the data. Explain. Earth is what we would classify as a crucible world, a planet with extreme environmental challenges, Zivrik said. No other known sentient species evolved in such conditions. Humans adapted to survive disasters, predators, climate shifts, and diseases. She pointed to human medical data. Their healing ability, pain tolerance, endurance, these aren't warrior traits. They're survival traits. Their bodies adapted to keep them alive in conditions that would kill most species. Frank nodded slowly. Our history of conflict came from competing for limited resources in a challenging environment. But look at our greatest achievements. They're in medicine, art, exploration. The Coalition must see this immediately, Saldrex said. As they spoke, a human transport ship evaded the blockade and reached Mars orbit. Instead of weapons, it carried medical supplies and rescue teams. Despite being fired upon, the ship maintained course and landed near the damaged colony. Coalition observers watched in confusion as humans risked their lives not to fight, but to save others. On the flagship, Commander Vrex received Zivrik's report along with footage of the human rescue mission. He turned to his communications officer. Send emergency orders to all ships. Cease hostilities immediately. The terrifying truth. Aliens discover humanity was built for war. Part 8. 1 week after the ceasefire, representatives from Earth and the Coalition gathered in the grand chamber of the rebuilt diplomatic station. The room was circular, with equal seats for all species, a design that reflected the new understanding between humans and aliens. Ambassador Frank Russell entered alongside President Howard. Across the chamber, Coalition Council leader Verex led a delegation of senior representatives. Science officer Zivrik stood nearby, her scales now a calm blue. Today marks a new beginning, Verex announced, his translator conveying sincerity. The Coalition formally apologizes for the actions taken against Mars colony and the mischaracterization of humanity. The President nodded. Earth accepts your apology and offers one of our own. We recognize that our rapid adaptation to your technology caused concern. Verex gestured to Zidrik, who activated the central display system. Images of Earth's harsh history appeared. Volcanoes erupting, ice ages, massive storms, and predators. For the official record, Zivrik explained, humans did not evolve as a warrior species. They evolved on what we now classify as a survival challenge world. No other council species faced such environmental pressures during their development. She displayed side-by-side comparisons of human and alien physiological responses. What we misinterpreted as combat adaptations were survival mechanisms. Humans don't heal quickly to return to battle. They heal quickly because on their world, slow healing meant death. Amy Foster, a human anthropologist, stepped forward. Our history of conflict stemmed from resource competition in a challenging environment. But throughout that history, we also created art, music, literature, and healing practices. The central display showed cave paintings, ancient temples, orchestras performing, and doctors treating patients. Even in our darkest times, Annie continued, humans showed compassion. We built hospitals before we had electricity. We risked lives to save strangers. These aren't the actions of beings created for war. Commander Vrex, now promoted to Coalition Security Chief, spoke next. The irony is not lost on us. We feared humans because they evolved to survive conditions that would kill most species. Yet that same resilience makes them valuable allies. Frank opened a data folder. Which brings us to our proposal. Earth offers a formal alliance with the Galactic Coalition based on our complementary strengths. The proposal outlined key points. Humans would contribute medical innovations developed from their unique biology. Their adaptation skills would help solve problems across Coalition worlds. In exchange, the Coalition would share technological advances and help humans develop sustainable space travel. Most importantly, Frank said, we offer our perspective. Living on a challenging world taught humans to find solutions where others see only problems. After 4 hours of discussion and minor adjustments, the alliance was formalized. The Treaty of Earth, as it would be known, established humanity as the 28th member of the Galactic Coalition. Later that evening, at the celebration dinner, Governor Susan Lane from Mars Colony spoke with Zivrik. How did you realize your original assessment was wrong? Susan asked. Zivrik's scales rippled with color. I saw humans rescuing their wounded on Mars. Warriors would prioritize the fight. You prioritized saving lives, even under attack. That's when I knew we had misunderstood everything. 6 months later, the first joint human-alien exploration vessel prepared for launch. Named New Understanding, the ship combined Coalition technology with human innovation. Its crew included members from 12 different species, including 6 humans. Captain Laura Bennett addressed her diverse crew on the bridge. We carry more than just our mission objectives. We carry the lesson that different evolutionary paths can lead to cooperation rather than conflict. As the ship moved away from Earth, 2 crew members stood side by side at a viewport. Zivrik, now the ship's science officer, watched her home stars fade into the distance alongside Sam Wells, the human navigator. You know, Sam said, the most interesting part of this whole misunderstanding is that your people weren't entirely wrong. What do you mean? Zivrik asked. Sam smiled. Humans did evolve to survive against incredible odds. We adapted to face whatever challenges came our way. But that same ability means we can adapt to peace just as effectively as we once adapted to hardship. The ship accelerated to jump speed, carrying humanity's first representatives into the wider galaxy, not as warriors, but as explorers, healers, and friends.